Hello everybody, it's Holger Mueller here from Constellation Research. Welcome you to episode 122. Can you believe it? We're like almost 123. We leave it to our friends in 2 weeks or so, but we'll do the 122
They gotta
show.
drive
It
that
wouldn't
car.
be in any other place. Exactly.
I think it's a great start to the new year. I feel like the new year started at a much different pace than 2025 did. I don't know if you're feeling the same thing, Holger, but it was like 2025
January was supposed to be quiet.
Right, like
Quiet,
January
nothing happening.
ease into things, and it's like
CES does some
everything's
consumer stuff. What's happening there? Everybody announces business stuff at CES. Guys, this thing starts with a C. It's not BES, Business Entertainment Conference or something.
Who knows? Like, where were the toilet paper, like robots and all of that stuff? Like, they were things like, this is in a warehouse. Like, that's impossible. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah. Jensen Huang thinks he has to diss all the frontier models by saying, hey, the open source models catch up in half a year, which is like backed up by nothing except from Jensen Huang saying it, which of course makes everybody say it and write about it. But
it's crazy. Story. But hey, it gives our own Larry Dignan a whole lot of stuff to write about, but it also does open up a time for us to talk about the news. Holger, you've especially been busy because it's like the world woke up and decided we got to figure out this quantum stuff. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, if you thought 2025 would have been the year for quantum, 2026 is starting strong. Microsoft is having an event as we speak in Copenhagen with their Nordic partner there. And the interesting thing is they're putting a full, as we expected the whole time, a full cloud infrastructure in front of that, coming up with a quantum OS, which prepares the data, a quantum SDK to build things, to build the code, make that easier. And it's all about gearing up to build, which will be the shortcut. Right now we're thinking about qubits, which is the hardware, but it will be how to build and have that software. So it's great to see, look for the news coming up from Microsoft this and next week about that. And at the same time, D-Wave about quantum circuits is basically hedging the two major technologies and can play no either way, which will make D-Wave a more long-term viable vendor from any risk hedgement from that perspective. So yeah, strong start of the year for quantum.
But you also brought up something else, which I think is really interesting, and I think it speaks to kind of what is happening from a European point of view that I want you to touch on for a minute there, which is we're seeing a whole lot of actual movement in the requirements for sovereign cloud. Share a little bit more about what's happening there.
Yeah, no, that's the interesting thing. There's been a lot of talk about sovereign cloud. There's been the attempts to build their own cloud, the Gaia cloud, which nobody talks so much anymore because basically it's faltered. And now it's basically seeing the technology vendors from the US coming to that, right? First and foremost, we launched last week AWS, which is building basically the equivalent to US East, which is the core cloud infrastructure. First one, the equivalent to that in Brandenburg in Germany, was going to be the core part for spinning up local zones with all sovereign cloud offerings in Europe. And it's a massive, almost 7 billion investment. So it's like a full regular cloud, not something else, not something different. It will be also run by only EU passport holders at some point this year. So it's totally clean from that perspective. And IBM on the flip side, he also didn't want to be counted out and announced their sovereign cloud core, a little different flavor, not a full region like in that case, but the ability for enterprise to run locally in their own data center, which makes it automatically also sovereign, but an easier packaged way to get the full IBM cloud stack. So 2026 is also gearing up to be the year of sovereign cloud.
I think it's super interesting because I think that, if we stack that up against, right now I'm running a survey, right, to CMOs and asking them, like, what are some of the biggest challenges that they're going to be facing certainly in this year to come, and more specifically around rolling out AI and making sure that AI expands. And honestly, one of the most interesting things is that they see a difference in what the challenges for marketing and that function is going to be, as opposed to what the AI challenges are going to be for the enterprise. And right now, we're probably about halfway through the data, so don't quote me on this, everyone. But for the enterprise, the number one issue is security, compliance, and regulatory, right? So there is a real need. And I got to tell you, CMOs who are in Europe, that's the big thought. They're even seeing it as a big issue for marketing. So, these answers around where data exists and where their compute exists and where their processes exist, it's becoming a very, very big conversation. So, yes, absolutely. All these conversations around sovereign cloud, very interesting moves, but expect to see some of those line of business and those functional leaders start to ask different questions. And if you are a functional leader and you're not asking these questions, go ask the questions, right? Like actually have the questions now rather than getting caught off guard. So really,
but as a European, I heard those requirements often also as an excuse to justify the inertia on not doing something yet. So the heads up is also informally, you're running out of excuses in 2026. This AI thing is real. You have to get your data story together and you will have to apply AI, and the expectation is there. There's no sovereign cloud, no strange president, the US excuse anymore in the run of 2026. So be prepared for that and get going on AI.
Yeah, big.
How about you? What's new? What's new on your side? What
what
news have you seen?
Gosh, it's like I want to say, like, you and I haven't even had a chance to talk about like crazy things like, hey, ServiceNow bought Armis and all like that happened at the end of last year. So again, talk about how we don't have any velocity break between 2025 and 2026. ServiceNow picked up Armis at the end of last year. I think that's a huge move. I think it's a huge move for ServiceNow. I think it's really smart. But I think the early conversations are certainly going to go around security, identity, what they're doing to secure the data, what they're doing to secure their workflows. I actually think the fascinating conversation is what this sets up for a 2026 into 2027 strategy for ServiceNow. Because if you're going to be a platform of platforms, better make sure that platform's secure. So I think there's a very, very interesting dynamic that's coming there. I think it also sets up ServiceNow for some very, very different conversations. It sets them up for very different conversations with very different stakeholders who are looking at very, very different requirements. So again, going back to Holger's statement of there not going to be so many excuses out there anymore. This is another example of that. If 2026 is the year we get rid of all of those excuses of why we couldn't look at those autonomous workflows, why we couldn't look at AI, why we couldn't look at the data, our CRM's wrong, our data's wrong, all our systems are wrong. This is really changing that story, and it's really kind of getting rid and stripping away some of those excuses. So thought that was super interesting. I think that we're seeing a lot of different players pick up very different pieces of data. I think a really good example of that is the company Amplitude, the marketing. I always call them the marketing analytics company, but they're really a marketing and product analytics. But they're an analytics company, right? I apologize to the team at Amplitude for always trying to put you guys in a box, but I know them well as a marketing analytics power, and they have added a new capability, and they're adding some new capabilities to bring revenue and growth data right into those platforms and right into a single plane of analytics for marketers. So now, as you're looking at all those go-to-market motions, as you're looking at the quality and the analytics and the trajectory behind your digital products, you're now really going to be able to layer in that insight and that intelligence around what is happening to growth, what is happening to revenue. And it's bridging that gap where you're no longer, again, no excuses. You can't say now, well, I don't know how that's impacting the bottom line. You're going to be able to layer those analytics. So their pickup of Infinigrow, I think is a very good move. It's a smart move on their part. I think you're going to start to see more and more solutions where data is going to be the bridge across a lot of these, again, functional excuses that said, well, I just didn't know, or I didn't know how that was going to be. These types of pickups and acquisitions are really pushing that data becomes that leveling of the playing field. Now, bring all that data and bring all that analytics data into one spot to really talk about something that our colleague Holger talks a lot about, Mike Nee. Right? Mike and his conversation around data to decisions and his conversation around context. I think a lot of these functional applications, things like an Amplitude, they're bringing all that insight and data and really allowing marketers to ask very different questions. I'm sure you're seeing very similar moves and similar kind of thought processes in HCM and kind of the HR world that you cover.
No, absolutely. The decision velocity, right, has to come to the speed of execution as well, right? I mean, you can't have very fast execution, especially in digital channels or on managing people, if you mentioned HCM, and have the decision velocity, which takes another meeting, another Teams call, another Zoom meeting, another get together, and so on. So you have to ramp up your decision velocity, and that's exactly what Mike is covering. Quick one thought on the ServiceNow piece. I don't say that's going to be like this, but that acquisition, as important as it is not the acquisition you should be doing at the level where the Now platform should be for maturity and shipping in the market. So this could be them going back to the drawing board and doing it right. We'll see how the delivery, how the uptakes of the Now platform is going to happen in the course of 2026. Now, I don't want to start any rumors here, but that's something where I'm thinking, okay, good acquisition, but why do that now? You should have done that half a year ago when you started building this platform. So maybe there's a version 2, maybe there's going back to the drawing board. We'll see that for the rest of the year. Just my five architecture cent here.
No, I think it's an interesting conversation. I do think that when I think of this, I don't so much as think of necessarily the architecture of the Now platform, but more also the kind of the added insight and the added usability and observability that Control Tower actually brings. So if you start to bring in a lot of the Armis solutions and that visibility solution in there, Control Tower takes on a very, very different trajectory. I think it's the right trajectory. It may be a rethink and it may be a redirection, but I think from a Control Tower perspective, I think it becomes a really, really powerful add.
Yeah, it's definitely an augmentation improvement. That the improvement was necessary now and it's happening now is what is interesting to see. And we'll see how this platform velocity and the creation velocity will happen, because that was something which ServiceNow has always talked a very good story, but has not delivered so much vis-a-vis their competitors so far, right? And we know Amit Zavery is working hard to change that, right? But I have not seen the big breakthrough yet. So it all will come in 2026. 2026 might be the year of the ServiceNow agents.
I think things are moving so fast, and yes, AI is bringing this on. I think that yes, the realities of data and people having to make that shift are certainly bringing this on. I think we're going to see a lot of times where either that inability for legacy platforms to continue to be the, like, if you just stick masking tape and some bubble gum on us, we'll still work. We'll still eke the data to where you need it to be. So you don't have to look at your infrastructure or platform yet. Like those days, AI has blown that away. I think we saw that in 2025. And 2026 has to be that year of reality. So I agree with you, Holger. I think that a lot of these things, I think we're going to see this not just from ServiceNow. I think we're going to see this from a lot of solutions who kind of have allowed that legacy train to be hidden under some layers of tape and some layers of bubble gum. But what's happening, certainly at the functional level, and I'm seeing this all the way across CX, is it was great in 25 that we got our freshly built agents, that we went on those supposed no code, low code tools to go ahead and build. Like we built all these agents and we could get them to perform to expectation amazingly well the first and the second time. Right? But because we didn't have this refreshing and constantly renewable source of data that was bringing in new insights, that was actually continuously improving over time, all of a sudden, by the time we got to third, fourth, fifth time, when we thought we were still going to maintain that level of excellence, that level of performance, that level of output, we weren't getting the outputs that we were expecting anymore. And so people were realizing that some of those gaps in platform and capability, some of those gaps in infrastructure, the legacy systems that have been holding us back, it's not just a nice to have or a theoretical, someday we're going to change this. This is what is going to make AI stay in a rut, and that more than anything is going to slow down that decision velocity.
Exactly. So your technical depth that you haven't addressed on the data, on the framework, on the low code, no code, on the API side is all going to hold your AI speed back. And that's the sins of the past will catch up with you in 2026.
That's we're gonna call it the year of the sins of the past. Like we'll come up with something catchy. Look over
your shoulder. Look over your shoulder. The sins are right behind you.
See if those sins are back there, everyone. Well, listen, Holger and I could wax poetic about the news all day long because the news just keeps on happening. But you've got a rest of an episode to watch. We've got some interviews coming up for you, but we'll be back at the end of the day or the end of the episode to say bye. So hey, go check out these interviews now.
Hi, we're here in Davos, and of course, it's another year. And of course, IBM's big presence here at Davos is noted, and we're with Mark Hughes. So one of the big topics was AI last year, but now the big topic is really how do we secure AI? How do we make AI successful? How do we actually interoperate? And more importantly, how do we deal and be on the defensive side of an AI attack? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? And what are people asking you about?
Well, Ray, it's an amazing time in terms of AI adoption, and I'm so excited about all the things that are going to come from that. I'm just going to unpack what you said a bit, because really when it comes to security and AI, there's two ways in which we think about it. The first one is, how can we adopt AI and how can we make security better so it improves our chances against the attackers? And just to take that in a bit more detail, security has been really good at automating and driving the need to be quick. And really, that's one thing that is so important in security, that you need to be quicker than the adversary that you're up against to get to and detect what's going on, so you can then give yourself time to respond. And also the accuracy to actually understand how you can drill in through the vast amounts of signals that you've got to work out accurately what you can focus on to actually then take the necessary action. So the first area about how we use AI in security is a sort of natural path from machine learning and other types of techniques that we've used for some time. So I'm really excited to say that here at IBM and more broadly in the industry, we're very early and aggressive adopters, not just of how we put AI agents into our workflows and rethinking and reimagining those workflows, but beyond that now, how we've got those agents working agentically together to now really re-engineer a lot of the workflows. And that's almost about reimagining parts of security. And it's not just in our detection and our response area, it's in areas like identity, which have traditionally been really difficult problems to solve. The AI is now that learning capability and that generative way of the way in which AI can solve some of those and really progress and improve those approaches is having a massive impact. So what it's doing, first and foremost, making us speed up and also then bringing us better accuracy. But of course, with that comes productivity saving as well. So big change happening in how security is adopting and approaching AI. So that's one area. But then we come to the other part of your question, which is also, in fact, if not more important, which is, well, what are we doing about securing all of those AI deployments that we're seeing at the moment? Now, that's a massive area that I'm afraid that many organizations, to be frank, are not thinking hard enough about yet. So then we come to the other area where it's about how we secure all of those AI deployments that we have across every enterprise happening at the moment. And I think it's worth, again, just a little bit thinking a bit about how organizations are approaching their AI deployments. So we've seen a lot happening in the sort of productivity space. In fact, at IBM, we have the Institute of Business Value, and there we actually have done some research that says that 80% of CIOs absolutely understand the fact that there's going to be improvements and benefits in terms of driving revenue, but the actual today outcome and ROI on that is much lower. In fact, only 24% saying that they're actually seeing that uptick. And that's a common theme, I think, that we're seeing.
That's a good number, though.
It is a good number, and it is. And it's very much centered around, at the moment, the productivity saving is where most of the AI is concentrated on. But the reality is, as we know, and this is our thinking in IBM, is you really have to re-architect and not just re-architect process in the way the business is operating to really get the benefit from it. And that's not just about taking processes that we know that might be suboptimal and using AI to really now make those more efficient. There's benefit in that, don't get me wrong, but that's not really the promised area where we can get to if we really think about AI differently. Yeah. So what that means is, let's think at one layer to start with, the data layer. So how do you get the data in a place where you can vector it, where you can really make it useful to train the AI models on in that reimagined enterprise to really drive revenue growth? And so getting the data right straight off poses a challenge for security. The data needs to be put into models, which then need to be trained. Those agents then will operate interoperably in an agentic way. All of that requires a security wrapper around it. And in many respects, that is, it's a really foundational part of being successful in AI and AI deployments more broadly. And it's an area where I think many organizations are not paying enough attention to yet. Good news is, in that area, we have a lot of security techniques, right? A lot that we've done a lot with. We know how to secure data. We know how to manage the security of data in transit. But applying that now in the way in which we're going to be using that data in the AI area, it requires new thinking and structural architectural thinking. A lot of advice is required there. So that's at the data layer. But then we go up, and we go up to then, okay, so we've got the agents deployed. They're doing great things. They're using the language models they're working on. That's fantastic, great outcomes coming. But what identities do they have? What privileges do they have? Who are are they allowed to talk to the other agents? And if they are at the same privilege level of privilege or not? And how do we make sure that we're managing those identities, managing those levels of access, and we have the traceability through there to do that. So that's another area. And then we go one stage further, which is right, okay, so the models themselves, how are they behaving? Are they giving us the sort of outputs that we thought that we should be seeing? So there's that whole behavioral model aspect. And then we come to, Ray, of course, the inevitable one, which is all of that AI, how it's deployed with all of the connectivity and everything else, of course, is going to be targeted very heavily by threat actors, potentially using AI techniques themselves. So it's a big area on how we secure this. Many organizations are really not thinking that through, and I think that is reflective of the fact that they perhaps haven't quite got their heads around a full architectural approach to how they're deploying AI in their enterprise.
Well, it's not that they just didn't do that. They're also piecemeal. Right? We've seen in so many cases they're using multiple approaches, they're using multiple vendors, and now they're unable to actually scale up or get to the next level.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest challenges our clients are facing right now is an area that I know you cover, which is post-breach resiliency. Mm-hmm. How do we actually get the situational analysis and awareness to actually then come back and monitor to be able to react quickly when the breach occurs, or when an attack occurs?
Yeah, great question. I have some great news there, which is that we're very quickly in security getting busy, because we recognize that if we look to the past, and sometimes the past is useful here, to how we deployed cloud in our enterprises, and that was not that long ago, and the reality is that we didn't in security get ahead of that, right? And still today we're struggling with cloud instances.
And the growth of hybrid is only going to attack, and the fact that we're bringing our models back onto private notions, sovereign AI. I mean, you're going to be busy for quite some time.
Enormous to think about, and these are great questions. They're fantastic questions because they're really, So how do we learn from, say, something like cloud?
Exactly.
Well, first things first. It's not at its outset a security conundrum. As I said it before, it's really about architecturally, organizationally. It comes down to all of those things. Governance. I know that's kind of a dreary word sometimes to some people, but for me, it's really important because I often think security really starts with a good thinking and thought process around governance. We can piece the security in when we need to, but the important thing is that we piece it in when we're thinking about it foundationally.
Yes, security by design.
There you go. Security by design is exactly what it's all about. And to get into it, there are then techniques and security tooling that we are now seeing emerging that is going to deal with some of those challenges that I talked about before in how you now deploy the actual agents themselves and make use of it in the organization. So we see a new class of AI security tooling appearing in conjunction with those things that we know about already, wrapped within that overall governance framework, which isn't a security thing, just to be clear on that.
So in summary, because of AI, we now have exponential scale both in offense and defense. We now have infinite possibilities in terms of actually looking at attack vectors and threats and trying to figure out how to minimize that and reduce that risk. Mm-hmm. And more importantly, we're actually in a situation where, we can actually be more proactive and get ahead of the issue.
Yeah, exactly that. And I don't want to over dramatize it. If you think about some simple analogies, there's the internet, and then there's how enterprises run and how they manage their data. There are some distinct different areas about how we deploy AI into enterprises and how we use enterprise data to train models that specifically are for those enterprise workflows with the agents that work from there. Now that's quite specific, so we can contain that. We can put security controls around that, as opposed to we can use general purpose assistants, for example, and that's a different thing. You need to do different security things there in terms of what data are allowed or how they are deployed into the enterprise. So those are all those considerations. So yes, you're absolutely right. There's a whole new series of attack and defensive techniques that are required. But thinking it through from the outset, you can pretty quickly, with the right advice and the right approach, get to the point of, as always, in security, the challenge always is you've got to do a lot of things reasonably well all the time. And that's what I would urge anyone watching this to really think about and find those things that make you get your biggest bang for your buck and then do them well.
Real quick, boards, CEOs, they're all here at Davos. They're going to walk out their 2026 plans, think about what they need to do. Top 3 things, lightning round, 30 seconds. What would you say they should walk out thinking about?
Secure your AI. That is a top of mind. Secondly, use AI in your security space to automate and really now think about what autonomous security looks like in the future, which is really a thing. Thirdly, post-quantum cryptography. We see quantum revolution about to happen in the sense that quantum capability is going to be there. That is going to have an impact on the existing cryptography we run today. Get busy discovering what cryptography you have and looking at how you can remediate and be ready for when that time comes to have the right crypt in place that is quantum resistant.
Y2Q is coming. What date?
20,
2028, 27?
29,
Over under?
29.
29.
And
Okay.
it's not just me saying that. Think about many national bodies are talking about that. 29, we think the capability will be there.
Under, over 2029, next Davos, we'll double check.
And so just very finally on that, Ray, get busy discovering, working out where your crypt is and getting a remediation plan in place. There is time now.
Don't wait.
You have to start.
Don't wait.
Absolutely right.
So, hey, thanks a lot for being here. This is great. Thanks for the conversation.
Not at all.
Everyone is talking about AI, but not all AI summits are equal. What are you looking forward to?
Chirag, this AI Summit is a little bit different. It brings together the power of Cisco's ecosystem, and throughout it, you can see where AI is headed, where it is today, but more importantly, where it's going into the future. And that's what I'm going to be excited about from all aspects, whether it's just AI to get it today and geopolitical risks or models or 3D or design. It's all being covered at once. And I think that's a great place to get everything you need to know at the beginning of the year. What about you? What are you looking forward to?
I'm really looking forward to understanding how far the model providers have come. We have seen lots of innovation in models last year, so it will be good to create an update on that. But also, I'm looking forward to understanding and hearing from Aaron Levy and OpenAI folks on the application side and workflows, because end of the day, applications drive adoption, and that should tell us a story as to are people actually using the features that model providers are building. And I'm also interested in the closing keynote. Jensen is going to be closing the event. I'm really looking forward to hearing from him. He's going to tell us what's really going to happen on the horizon, which is at 3 to 5 years.
You're right. And I'm excited about Tarek Amin, the CEO of Humane. He's going to be giving that perspective, especially given what they've been doing with their build outs. And of course, enterprise AI with Anthropic. Back to your model question. But the one I'm really looking for is Ann Neuberger. She's going to give us a foreign policy, geopolitical perspective like no other. So be there, be square. February 3rd, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. live streamed this year for once. And of course, the Cisco AI Summit. Definitely catch it, the builders of the AI economy.
See you there.
That's it. That's episode 122. You're done. You're off the hook now from Constellation Research. But you're not off the hook for what's happening in 2 weeks with episode 123. That's going to be brought to you by Larry Dignan and Martin Schneider. Listen, they got scripts, they got plans. They don't ride in a clown car like Holger and I do. But do they have the sparkling personalities that we have? I don't know, Holger. I don't know. I mean, I love our colleagues to death, but we're delightful. Listen, thanks so much for joining us for the second episode of the new year for Constellation TV. But in Holger and my selfish world, it's the first episode of the year. So that's just how we're going to run this. Again, 123 coming in hot in 2 weeks, and we'll see you at episode 124. So thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. There we go. Okay, sorry. My headphones connected somewhere. Don't know where. Are Larry and Martin that perfect that they have no bloopers? None. Nothing. They say nothing. Like nothing happens. That they just are like, we're coming in here and we're reading the news like absolute professionals. And there's nothing. What we're saying here is that Holger and I truly are the clown car goat rodeo of Constellation Research. That's what's happening.
It's confirmed. Yes,
We are the ones who record this with no safety nets.
Yeah.
No net.
Other people cheat.
But Larry really is a comical person. You could pretty much say to Larry, like, well, I have said to Larry, come on, let's go take a picture with that cutout of Mariah Carey. And he just goes and does it. Like, he's like, okay, like, let's go do
He's
this
very
ridiculous,
compliant.
stupid thing.
He's also the most funny when he's upset about something.
Oh, 100%.
So you have to get him riled up.
100%. Listen, Tipsy Doug was my favorite Doug. Like, we all know that. And that has not changed. Angry Larry.
It's also good.
Slightly ticked off. I'm going to go on a rant, Larry.
Yeah.
He will
Although,
say
inappropriate story, Larry, is also pretty damn funny.
or when Larry can't stop laughing.
Larry Dignan, when he gets to that point, straight up giggles. It is the most gleeful giggle ever. And then I am not allowed to sit anywhere where I can actually make eye contact with the man. Because if he's in giggle
It
mode
starts it again, triggers
and
it.
I look at him, it just erupts all over again. And I'm so had to bust out my LAFD sweatshirt.
Why?
Los Angeles Fire
Did something
Department.
happen, or is it a remembering
Just
of last
1 year. It's 1 year.
Okay,
since
anniversary.
these Four guys had to be, guys and gals, the men and women of the LAFD had to be out there saving homes, risking lives, all that kind of stuff. And the Rams are in the playoffs, so who knows? It could be a Super Bowl with my Patriots versus my Rams, and I'm just going to sit there and hope someone wins the game. I'm going to be cool with it. No, we already talked about that. Damn it. Sorry. I'm just trying to find something real quick. Poor Hannah. It's like the number one thing we ask her to do is make sure the screens are in the right place.
I think she does. She does it on purpose. She does it on
Like the
purpose
world's gonna
to
end.
show, to make sure we're paying attention, and
Exactly.
she can show value by sweeping us back and
Oh
forth.
my gosh.